Thank you all for coming to this week's edition of Clecat. Our guest hosts for this week are Steve Kearns and Richard McCaman. They're going to tell us all about the wonderful world of Google applications and Google Docs. Take it away, Richard or Steve.
So I'm going to start here. The way we're going to work this here is I've got a very brief presentation I'm going to make just to give you an overview, and then we're going to actually get in and start working in some of the applications. And we'll talk about that as we go through that presentation. So the title of this obviously is Google Apps, or what's in it for me? Why should you be using Google? We thought it would be kind of a useful tool to go through the processes here. So we're going to talk a little bit about Google Apps and what they are. It's a wide variety of applications. I'm going to focus today on Google Docs, which is a word processing application, Google Sheets, and a little bit on Google Slides, which are presentations. But as you can see popping up on the screen here, there are a whole lot, many more applications that are Google Apps that you may not even have known are Google Apps. So Gmail and YouTube are Google Apps, and you're already using that kind of information. But we're going to show you the benefit of how you can use all of these and integrate them together and use them to make your life a little bit easier. My area of expertise is in the Google Docs and the Google Sheets and the Google Slides, but we have people on in the session here who are also experts in some of the other ones. So if you have questions about anything that we've got going on, this is fairly free. I don't know that Rick has muted anybody. So if anybody has any questions at any time while we're doing this, feel free to jump in. This is a free and open session. If we're going to talk about something later, I'll tell you that we're going to talk about it a little bit later, and we'll show you that as we go on. Okay, so why do you want to use it? Well, first of all, it's free. So you don't need to go out and buy, Microsoft Office. You don't need to, subscribe to Office 365. You don't need to go out and buy any kind of application. Just about everything that goes on with Google Apps is pretty much free. And that's a really useful tool to have. It's hard to beat free. And you can accomplish everything that you really want to do with the free applications that are going on. And it doesn't matter whether or not you use a Mac or whether or not you use Windows, it will run pretty much the same on every operating system. It importantly lets you access your files anywhere you have an internet. So if you've got a file that you've been working on at home or on your laptop, or you're traveling somewhere and you forget or you don't have your laptop, or you don't have your iPad, or you don't have anything, but you can get to a computer that has an internet connection. It doesn't have to be your own computer. You can get to the files that you've been working on because they're stored in the cloud for you, and save and backup are done automatically for you. So it's a really useful tool. You don't have to worry about sticking in flash drives and going through and doing backups and finding out where your files are and all that. They're always available to you through the internet. And we're going to show you some other examples of things that also are quite useful, in that you can collaborate and share large files with other people. So you don't need to be sending emails to someone with an attachment, say, what do you think of this? And they mark it up and they send it back to you. And then you say, well, I didn't like that. How about this? And, you can actually collaborate. We're going to do some collaboration in the class so you can see how that works. Okay. In today's class, through some what I hope to be some useful examples, we're going to preview primarily Google Docs and Google Sheets, and then we're going to integrate some of that with Google Photos as well to give you sort of a sense of how the Google Apps work. But really, this is, this class is for everybody else. So I already know how to use this. Richard knows how to use this. Many of the people in the class know how to do this. So the questions are pretty much or the whole point of this session is for you to ask questions and point out some of the things that you might find or think you might have an application for us to respond and say, yeah, that's a really good idea, and here's how you might go about doing that. So we'll answer your questions. We'll hear your suggestions on how you might use Google Apps. And as the spoiler alert was, this presentation was created with Google Slides. Okay, so let's get started. So what you're seeing here is a start of a home inventory. And what I've got at the bottom of this is a bunch of tabs. The first tab that I've got here is for my kitchen. And like almost everybody, I've got my refrigerator that's in there. That's because I was able to get the refrigerator before. You couldn't get refrigerators now with the lockdown in place. So they're hard to come by, but I do have that refrigerator. It's a Sears Kenmore refrigerator. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up the fact that I've got a top row. This is a Google sheet that has identified in the top row what the item is, what the value is, what the date I purchased it as, the receipt date. I'm going to widen this up a little bit more. I'm going to have an opportunity to show you that I can, for insurance purposes here, have a picture and also provide a link to the manual for it. So first thing I'm going to do, and these are not real numbers. I'm just putting the information in here to give you an idea, so that I've identified the fact that I have purchased this refrigerator for $2,500. I purchased it on April the 15th of 2017. Okay, and if I had a receipt, I could make a picture of a receipt and paste it here, but I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit later. But what I did do is I took a picture of it. So I went to Google Photos, and I've got a folder here for my home inventory. So I've got this picture of the Google Photos of this refrigerator, and I'm going to copy the link address here, okay, for that particular Google photo. I'm going to go back to the sheet, and I'm going to say, okay, the picture for that is going to be pasted right here in my column of Google Photos. Now I could go through and do the rest of this kitchen inventory on the Google Sheet and type all of this stuff with all the information that I have, but I have prepared for this a little bit easier. What you can see now is that I've got a variety of things in my kitchen. So I have a refrigerator, I have a dishwasher, I have a gas range, I have a microwave oven, and I have a dining table. Now the other thing that I've done here is I do have a receipt that I posted to Google Docs. And if I open up my Google Docs, I can get a picture of the receipt that I paid for this kitchen table and love seat. So I've got that in my spreadsheet now that I've got as a reference point. I've got a picture of the dining room table. And you can see that it was posted to my Google Photos, and it's shared appropriately there. More importantly, or at least another thing that I've got is one of the things that I find useful is I went out and I found for the dishwasher, I went out and said, okay, I want to know where the manual is. So what I did is I went to the Bosch website, because it's a Bosch dishwasher, and I said, show me on the Bosch dishwasher. I want to go to the support of the menu here. I go to the menu and I want to find the owner manuals, and the manual for the dishwasher. There is the instruction manual, and I can take that document now and paste that into the manual. And now I've got a place wherever I want to. I don't have to keep all of the manuals to all of these things hidden around in some folder. I can access all of that information. So Now you'll also notice that some of these cells wrap around. That's a formatting function. So if I want to, I can come in here to this cell and I can format paint that cell to make sure that it looks exactly the same way so that it word wraps. And that cell will word wrap. So I've got all of the information that I can get to and make sure that I've got in one quick place everything for my refrigerator, for my kitchen. This is the basic inventory for my kitchen. And because this is a spreadsheet, it becomes really easy doing that to find out the total, because this is just a quick add, and the functions allow me to give a sum and allow me to say I want the sum of all of those cells to be the total value of what I've got in the kitchen. Now I'm going to use that later on in my explanation. But I could fill out the rest of these and go to my family room. I'm just going to quickly copy some information from another source that I've got there. I could enter information for a master bedroom where I don't have that. I could enter in, I could add a sheet for different rooms in the house. So right now I've added a sheet and I could rename that to be my office or my, rename that to what I've got in the garage. And I can capture all of this information in the sheet. And then the useful part here is I can come and create a summary page. This summary, I'm going to start from scratch here, of what's in the kitchen. This is my kitchen, my family room, my master bedroom, my office, everything that I've got down here. The value of the kitchen is a function of what's on my tab. So if I simply put in a plus sign and say, I want that value in this one to be part of what's the sum total of the kitchen, I can say it's this value. And the formula that's in here now says it's what's in row B8 of the kitchen. And the value of what's in the family room since I only have the one item, I'm just going to put it down there or that, and I can sum the totals for everything that I've got, right? So I've just created a sheet. If I completed it, fully, you'd have a fully documented inventory of everything in your house. And you say, well, how might I use that? Well, I might use it because I'm going to want to have a letter that I'm going to send to an insurance agent to tell him that this is the value of what I've got in my house to be a part of my policy. So I'm going to open up another application here. I'm going to open up another tab and I'm going to open up a Google Doc. And I just started a basic one that looks like this. But I'm going to do a couple things with this. So I've started to the insurance company, and I could start typing what I want, however I want to type this in my Google Doc. But I want to do something a little bit different that's a little bit kind of interesting for people who don't type very well or type very fast. And I can come in here to the tools function and I can do voice typing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say voice typing, and it will open up the microphone here. And as soon as I get done, I'm going to continue here with my typing and say, below is the itemized listing of home furnishings that I would like to have included in my policy declaration. I'm going to stop. And because I picked this up in the middle of it, the T was capitalized because it thought it was the beginning of the sentence, but I can easily change that. And I can add a period at the end of that. And I could have a return and say, I can provide the details when required, period. Please provide a quote on how much this will increase my premium. period. Sincerely, your client. So now, rather than typing this, I have voice typed it, and I'm going to integrate this information with what I had from the Google Doc. So I can insert here, I can go to the Google Doc. I'm sorry, I'm on the Google Doc on the insurance company letter. I'm gonna put a little spacing in here. And I'm gonna insert a table, excuse me. I'm gonna insert a link. That's what I want to do. I'm gonna take this particular section, which is the summary on my Google Sheet. I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna go back to the letter. I'm gonna paste. And Google Docs is going to ask me, do I want to link it to that particular spreadsheet? And I do want to link it to the spreadsheet, or I can make it unlinked. But I'm going to link it to the spreadsheet because I want to do something with it. So now I've got this document with the table that I've created in my Google Doc. And you can see that the total value is just under $6,000. But if I come back to the Google Doc, the Google Sheet, and I add something to the family room. I say I have a Vizio TV, and I'm gonna say that's $1,000. I don't remember when I bought it and all that stuff, but I'm gonna make the sum total here. I'm gonna go to my summary, and I'm gonna change that value from here to say, instead of the one item, I'm going to make it the sum total from my family room is this total. Now I've changed it to be closer to $7,000. And when I go back to my Google Doc, I can update it. And now my table has completely changed. So I can integrate between Google Docs and Google Photos and Google Sheets. But I also have the ability to do something else. So what I'm going to try to do here now is collaborate with Richard, and I'm going to share with Richard this entire document because he's a nice guy and because I asked him if I could do this before. Okay, and he's going to get this insurance company letter, and he's going to get an email telling him that he's got it in his email. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and Richard's going to share and open up his email, and hopefully he's gotten a message. There it is. So he's got an email from me about an invitation to join or edit the insurance company letter.
All right, so here's Steve's letter.
So Richard has the document up, okay? And he's got it on his screen. I'm going to show you this letter. So you've got this letter here, but if you see, Richard's got a pointer here right in front of the word any. This is not me, this is Richard. And if I hover my mouse over, I can see that that red mark is Richard. And Richard can type anything he wants on this document now because I've given him editor access to it. So Richard, if you want to do it by voice or by typing, you can highlight it, you can change it, you can edit it. I've made you an editor, which means you have the ability to completely change it. I could have made you just a commentator, which means you could make comments to it, but not actually edit it. But go ahead and make any changes you want, add any punctuation, add any words.
Okay.
Maybe change it to Allstate Insurance Company or whatever you want. And as he's doing that, it's really important for you to understand that you're looking at my screen, at my Google Doc, but Richard is in the process of editing it. Oh, he's down at the bottom. Got it.
You might provide an additional document to show the nature of your existing insurance plan. period.
So as you can see, Richard has gone in, but while Richard is in, he's got an extra word here. And while Richard has typed that word in here or entered that in, I can come in here and delete it and come through it. So Richard's not making that change. I just made that change. And if I had given Richard access to the spreadsheet and the Google Doc or Google Sheet, he could have made changes to the totals as well. He could have added things to the various elements of that. And that's sort of a way very quickly that you can go through and integrate Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Photos, Gmail. We went out to the internet to get user manuals for all of the things that we did. And they're all in one place. And they're all easily accessible. So if I wanted to go to the user manual again for the dishwasher, or if I wanted to go to the user manual for the gas range, there's the gas range. So I've got all of this stuff all in one place, and it's a really easy way to not have to worry about this. Let's say, God forbid, my house, burned down and my computer went up in smoke. All of this stuff is filed in the cloud on the internet. I could go to anywhere that has an internet connection with any computer and go pull up all this stuff to provide documentation for what I have in my kitchen and all of the things that I've identified.
Does it save it automatically to the cloud, or do you have to go up to save?
No, that's a very good question. I'm going to show you if you can catch this real quickly. I'm just going to type something. I'm going to format paint this date. And if you notice up here, it says last edit was 9 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. Because I'm going to make this top justified, so I'm going to justify it to the top of the page. When I do that, it's going to save it. And last edit was seconds ago, and it's saved. And you can see up here it said save to drive. Right up here it'll say save to drive. So if I come in here and I just type in something and I enter it, it says saving, and it's been saved to the drive. And if I get rid of it, up here it'll say saving, and it's been saved to the drive. That change. So it's automatic. You don't have to go in and do that.
Okay, thanks. And the other question I had is, what did you click on to share that with Richard?
Oh, so very easily I went up to so I shared with him the Google Doc, but I could just as easily have shared with him this. Let me come back to that. Okay, so up in the top of every, in the Google Doc and the Google Sheets, in Google Slides, there's wherever you've got it, there's an option here to share whatever you've got, and you can share it with the people that you want. So I went in here and I said, click here to share this doc. I had shared the Google Doc with him. This is the Google Sheet. So if I wanted to share it, I could share it with him. I could share it with Amy. So I'm going to share it with Amy and say, here's the message, here's their inventory. And now Amy has an invite to see this particular document as well.
Steve, I have a question.
Sure.
You've got a document there that has a bunch of stuff embedded in it.
Yep.
Okay, if you share that document with someone, are you automatically sharing all those embedded documents?
Yes. Well, now that I think about it, probably the receipt and the pictures and all that, I would probably not be sharing that with them. I would have had to grant them access to the pictures as well. Because if they clicked on the link, they would not have access to that particular document, which is a picture in my Google Photos. If they had clicked this particular link, they would not get to it because it's a photo in my Google Photos. I would have had to share that particular photo with them. So I take that back. So this was a quick and easy example that I thought that people would have a use for, to try to give you an idea of a couple of things that are going on here that include here's the math function of the sum, the opportunity to do a pointer to a different value, to integrate the spreadsheet with Google Photos and with the internet and with the Google Doc with that summary and how we can share a document. It was a quick and easy example. I have one other example that doesn't involve that, that I wanted to share with everybody. I read an exorbitant amount, what Amy considers to be an exorbitant amount of material. I have a Kindle, and on my Kindle, I have a whole bunch of documents. So I can never remember what I've read. And many times I will come through and I will start a book, or before I did this, I will start a book and I will forget that I've read that already. And I'll get about maybe 100 pages and say, wait a minute, this sounds familiar. So I took it upon myself to create a Google Sheet with everything that I've read, and it's sorted by author, and it's color coded. And I tell you the color coding because that's important to me. So the green means that I've read it. The blue means that I've gone out to the library. The Braille Library interacts with something called Overdrive, where I can pick up books for free and borrow them. Yellow means it's on my Kindle, and purple means it's not available yet, but I want to order it. And I've got everything here, but I'm going to do something that's a little bit interesting here. So I'm going to take these first 3 rows, and I'm going to say I want to freeze up to the current row. So now I've got these first 3 rows frozen, and now as I scroll down, those first 3 rows are frozen. And I can always see that. But I also did one other thing here that's kind of useful, is I use this tool called filtering. So I create a filter on row 3, which says author, title, series, order, comments, etc. And I've created a filter for that. And you can see it's added a little indicator here that says this particular row, everything on this row is filtered. And I can come in and say, okay, I want to see everything by Mark Karstens. And you can see here now that I'm only looking at Mark Karstens, and I've read the first 8 of his Mark Cadella series. There's 2 more that I haven't read yet because they're in white. But it's really kind of interesting. I don't have to pick a particular author. I can say, I want to see everything that is by color. And the color that I'm looking for are those things that are on my Kindle. So I can identify now, these are the things that are on my Kindle that I haven't read yet. And I place a little number here that says, this is the order in which I want to read it. And I can sort them by that number. So now I've got the sorted by order, by number. So that's kind of interesting. And I can undo what I just did, either by clicking the undo button or do a Control-Z. And now I'm back to the way it was before in that particular order. And I'm filtering on yellow, but I'm going to select all. And now my sheet, select all. And now I'm back to normal. So that's another useful tool for managing data in a Google Sheet. And I've reached the end of anything that I wanted to present here. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to ask for anybody if they have any thoughts on how they might use Google Sheets or Google Docs, or how they might want to go about doing that. And we'll open this up to a free-form discussion.
Steve, if I might, I'd like to add maybe 5 minutes more in covering a couple of issues that you mentioned only slightly.
By all means, Richard, jump in. What would you like to do?
Share a screen, looking at a screen of mine. The first thing I want to show you is that I have a number of people I'm collaborating with, including probably somewhere around 50 people at OLLI who are interested in genetic genealogy.
Richard, let me interrupt you for 1 second here because I want to call to the attention to people the attention. One of the things that is intuitive to us because we do this all the time, but Richard went to Google Drive. Google Drive is a lot like your Windows Explorer. It's showing everything that's in so Google Windows Explorer shows everything that's on your computer, and you've got a whole bunch of folders. Richard's opened up Drive, and he's got a whole bunch of folders here where he's deposited information. So that's no different than what you're doing with a regular computer.
Exactly. I can create folders as is necessary. In this case, what I've done is with the individuals at OLLI who are, my role is many faceted, but among other things, I bought some special software that I'm permitted to use on behalf of hundreds of people at OLLI and genetic genealogy. And we have created individual folders for each of the individuals or couples. And within those folders, there are several files that I've used this software to create, and then I upload from the software the output file and put it in an individual's folder, and then we can open that up, and these happen to be fairly complicated sheets, have their own virtue. What I skipped past and meant to point out was that I have shared this whole folder with the OLLI members whose data it contains. So we're all equal in sharing, editing, interpreting, or whatever what's going on in the file. This happens to be a file that's got 80,000 lines of data showing the amount of DNA that Pat Piper shares with with 80,000 DNA matches. It's an enormous file, but it's relatively easy to manage. It's got headers like Steve showed, where you can put preserve the headers while you scroll through this enormous thing. It's got active links. It's got a variety of ways that the data in this sheet can be shared, etc. And because every file in this folder is shared with Hunter and Pat Piper, then they can access any of the files the same as I can. In fact, what I prefer is that they create the folder so I have and share the folder with me, so they are the owner. But in fact, if I create the folder and share it with them, ultimately I can make them the owner, and I become a participant at their discretion and can be dropped at any time. But these are all active collaborative files that are being shared across a broad population and containing extremely complex data mixed in with simple documents in which we capture various facets of the data, as Steve was pointing out just a minute ago. But these consist of capturing pictures of family trees and combining that with DNA data that provides an interpretation of exactly what the DNA is telling you about how you're related to various other people.
Richard, if you can go back to the drive for a minute, just to the folders where you got to this. I think you can point out that
Okay,
we did that with Amy's. So Amy created the folder and shared it with you. So you can see there that Amy is the owner of this particular folder, and Richard had the ability to edit it and collaborate with us.
exactly. But there are several of these folders where I've also converted it from a folder I originally created. I've passed the ownership back to
Right.
the member. So it works in a variety of ways. All these things are backed up by Google. I don't have to worry about backups. They're all accessible by any of us, and it doesn't matter whether a computer fails or not. I'm not limited to getting to these files by a single computer. I can be anywhere the internet's accessible, and I've got a device that gets me on it to view it. It's much easier to edit it on a computer than it is a phone, obviously, but all these things are possible. I think that's probably all I really wanted to say at this point. Steve, I can stop sharing.
Okay, I'll point out one other use that that Amy and I have used this for is back before COVID and we were traveling. We took a cruise with our family, and I created an itinerary in our Google Sheet, and I shared it with everybody, and we could all know exactly where we were supposed to be at any given point in time. And I had that not only in the computer, but I had it on my phone. So all of our tours, the phone number of the tour company was listed. If we had any trouble, any emergency information was listed and I could access it directly from my phone, whether or not I had Wi-Fi or not, because it was a cellular activity. So as long as I had access to either Wi-Fi or cellular, I could get in contact with the tour company. I could find out exactly where I was going. So it's really kind of a beautiful way of being able to share information and make it useful and accessible wherever you are. So.
And back that up, his brother and his wife and I all used the sheet as we were on our trip, and it was a fantastic tool to keep everything in one spot.
We collaborated in the development of it as well. So we had tried to think of, okay, which shore excursions do you want to go on? So we shared the sample of the shore excursions, and we made our comments individually of which ones we would like. And from that, we chose which shore excursions are, and they went on the itinerary.
One other thing I'd like to show real quick. Am I back on screen?
Yep, you are.
Any of you who are presently using Microsoft Office Word knows what the ribbon menu looks like, and how, if you get out of practice with it, the difficulties you face being able to use and find and use the command you want, knows that this is a stark comparison of the simple menu that Microsoft Word used to have way back in 2007 or earlier, and that built into this simple format are enough complex subtools, submenus, that you can do anything with Google Docs that you can do with Microsoft Word, and more, in the sense that the dictation has always been more faithful here than you could get out of Dragon Speaking, which is what by and large Microsoft uses. So the simplification on the menu, the ease with which you can find your way around. It's a much more intuitive thing. Is a very strong feature, whether you're new to Office or experienced in terms of word processing. This is an excellent choice.
Yeah, so I'd like to hear if anybody has any kind of thought processes on how or what they might be able to use this for.
I think if you paid your bills, you could list them there.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Sure.
There are a lot of people who are uncomfortable with the idea of putting their entire lives onto the cloud. Could you talk about that, some of the security issues or ways to address them?
Sure, Richard, you want to address that? So here's the thing, okay? It's a valid concern for everybody. You know, your data is out there no matter what you have, okay? I would not necessarily have a spreadsheet with all of my bank account information. I would not have a spreadsheet that lists all of the, you know, my credit card information. Sensitive information is going to be able to be accessed no matter what. If you've got a computer that's hooked up to the internet, and hackers want to get to it, it doesn't matter where it is, they're going to get it. It's not a matter that it's in the cloud, it's a matter of people are going to be able to get to it wherever they want to get to it.
Can you put two-factor authentication on it?
Yes. Back when I first started teaching classes at OLLI, I was actually doing Microsoft Office. At the same time, I was just considering starting Google Docs. And at that time, I had everything on my computer and was involved in a routine that roughly once every 3 months, I did full backups of all my operating system, hard drives, to preserve the data in case I got lost, but I had it on my devices and I felt quite secure at that point. In the course of maybe 3 years, all in all, eventually I put everything, migrated everything I wanted to keep off of all the drives and have virtually everything in the clouds at this point. And no longer engage in a very complex process to really back up everything so that, in fact, if a drive fails, you go out and buy a new drive, and with a click of a mouse, you start reinstalling everything, including the operating system. That's an issue that the over 70 crowd aspire to, but when they're really pushed to it, it's very hard to do it. And I no longer engage in that kind of activity. I did in the early days encourage people who were going to put more and more data on in the cloud at Google, encourage them to use Chrome as a browser, because Google built a lot of protection against hacking. Some time back, people would get a picture in their email that came from a person they knew who said, "Oh, I just got back from China and I took this great shot of your old home area. Just click on it." And just clicking on a picture actually set you up to be hacked on your email. Google built things into Gmail and in general into the Chrome browser that provided a lot of protection. It turns out in the last year and a half, and they called it sandboxing. And in the last year and a half, Edge, Microsoft Edge, and Firefox browsers have, and Safari have also adopted the open sandboxing system that Google developed, and they now all provide a reasonable degree of protection. Chrome still has some unique advantages with respect to Google Apps, but security is really high, and the double authentication is equally important with respect to Google and the apps.
So I want to, thanks, Richard. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any more questions about that? Because I want to show one more thing before we run out of time. I called up and I'm sharing another document with you. This is something that I use a little bit to document the communications I have for genealogy with the people that I've communicated with. And this is a document that lists all of the information and email stuff that I've collected from different people. These are DNA matches to my mother, which is the header of this particular document. This is my mom, so this is the #1 match that I had in the communication I've had. But this is a Google Doc, and Google Docs has a feature that allows me to make it fairly easy to navigate. This is a very long document. It's got 43 pages here, and I don't want to scroll through all 43 pages to get through all that. I'm interested only in certain people at any one given time. So Google Docs has a feature called show an outline. And if you build the document appropriately, it will build that document outline on the left, and I can jump to a particular person and jump down to his particular page. This might be something that is quite useful. For example, if you're doing a book, and this might be the heading of a chapter. So this might be a chapter for E. Gertler, or a chapter for Kate Seat, or a chapter for Murray Solzberg, or whatever the chapters you are. So if you're doing like writing a book, this is a really cool way of being able to navigate and keep it all in one place, so you don't have to find where you were every time you want to get back to the last place.
I was so impressed when Steve first showed this to a little group who were exploring Google Apps. I was so impressed with this that I've started a project on the side to offer to the genetic genealogy group an opportunity to use this feature to write up their biological family history organized around their DNA matches. I think this is a fantastic use and template that Steve's provided.
Well, Google's provided it, I haven't.
Well, but your demonstration lit up, you know, a lot of things are a consequence of trying something, but getting started trying something depends on motivation. You had a good reason to start looking for ways to do what you wanted to do, and you're sharing that result of your exploration with us. And I think this is really inspiring to the people who are in Life Storybook as well as other applications.
So going back to what we originally wanted to do, I'm going to stop share and say, you know, again, one of you said, and I wasn't looking at the screen, about maybe documenting all your bills. That's one way of doing it.
Steve, I think your set of illustrations of the Google applications with the home inventory is wonderfully done. Appreciate it very much. I think one way that you could take a slightly different angle on home inventory, which is not to criticize the Google applications at all, is just get your phone into shoot a video mode and walk around the house shooting a video, looking at the things in the kitchen, looking at the things in the living room. And if you want to add any information to just the visual of the video, you can talk into the microphone and say that refrigerator was a Sears Kenmore, whatever. that's a really quick and dirty way to get a good start on a home inventory.
Absolutely, and then you could upload that video and then post it to the home inventory list so that you had, you know, some verification of what it is other than pictures.
Yep. I think another thing that might be worth pointing out to people, if it's not obvious, is we talked some about Microsoft Word as an alternative to Google Docs and Excel as an alternative to Google Sheets. The Google applications are very good at importing and exporting files from other tools. So if you want to move forward using, say, Google Docs to do a collaborative update of a document that you currently happen to have in Microsoft Word format, you can absolutely import it into Docs from the Word file. And you could even at the end, if there was some reason you needed to share it back to a community that was Microsoft Word oriented and not Google Docs oriented, export it back to a Word file at the end and share it back to the people who provided it. So there's some very nice import-export functionality between the Google applications and popular other applications.
The other thing I use it a lot in a Flash is to create a spreadsheet, a real 2-column spreadsheet for keeping track of websites. You know, when you're researching something and you go to this site and the next site, and after a while you forget where you've gone to. And so I make an annotated spreadsheet where in one column I have the topic and the other column I have the URL for that topic.
Yes.
So whenever I'm researching anything, that's what I automatically create that and just save that out as
So we
a resource.
We didn't discuss this, but there is another advantage that exists if you're going to use slides or Google Docs or Excel that you don't normally, Google Sheets as opposed to Excel or any of the other Microsoft products. And that's version control, is that you can go back to a previous version, which is very difficult to do unless, if you're using Microsoft Office products and you're going to make a change, you need to save the document as something else with a different file name, maybe a different date and time that identifies when it is. But if you build this information in the Google app structure, you have the opportunity to do version control and go back to a previous version and see what it was before you can.
What did you show that, Steve, with the document that you and Richard collaborated on?
Steve, I can do that. I'll go share the document. Here it is right now. And if I go up and click on File and look at version history, I will see that Steve Kearns started this thing at 12:31. Yeah, but I thought there was a...
So the point is, Richard, if you scroll down a little bit on the doc, you can see what you've added, that in purple.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
If you go back to the one that I created before, that won't be there. So if you...
Exactly. Okay.
We've got about 7 minutes left. I wanted to point out that on October 27th, 2 weeks from today, our next Clecat meeting will be hosted by Warren Wilson and Richard McCaman, and they're going to talk about useful online resources for learning at home. So I think you'll find there's lots of good stuff they can share with you. And 2 weeks after that, on November 10th, Bob Newcomb's going to be talking about the new things in iOS 14 for iPhones and iPad OS 14 for iPads.